All right, so Daniel, we all know this Daniel he's a prophet in the Old Testament. Daniel lived about 550 BC, so about 550 years before Jesus came. So Daniel, you all know who he is. He is the same Daniel that, you know, the story of Daniel in the lion's den when he was thrown into the lion's den and God shut the mouths of the lions so that they didn't hurt him. So same Daniel. Okay, and so today we're going to look at 2 chapters in Daniel. So there are 3 places in the Bible, 3 main places in the Bible where we get our ideas about the end times and what it's going to look like, what our future is going to look like. And the first place is in Daniel, and we're going to talk about that today. The second place is what Jesus says in Matthew 24 that we talked about in November and December. And then the last place is Revelation. And we're going to start that next week. Okay, so Daniel, when he was alive, this was during a time when the Israelites had been defeated by the Babylonians. Okay, and so Jerusalem, during this time that Daniel is alive, Jerusalem had been destroyed. It had been torn up. There weren't, it was not functional at that time. And so the Babylonians had also taken many of the Israelites into captivity, and they had taken them back to Babylon. Okay, and so Daniel was one of those who had been taken back to Babylon. And 3 of his friends, who might sound familiar to you, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Okay, so Daniel and his 3 friends. So they were taken as captives back to Babylon, but they were separated from the other Jewish people and to serve as consultants to the king. Okay, so they were considered to be wise men by the king. Okay, so our story begins with the king at the time, and his name was Nebuchadnezzar. And so King Nebuchadnezzar, he was the Babylonian king. He had a dream that really, really disturbed him. And so he called a bunch of his wise men, not including Daniel at this point, and he told them that he had this disturbing dream, and he wanted them to interpret the dream. However, he refused to tell them what the dream was. He wanted the wise men to tell him what he dreamed. So I guess he's testing them. It's like, let's see how wise you really are, wise men. So the wise men, of course, protested against this. They were not happy about this at all. They said, nobody can do that, king. You have to tell us the dream, and then we can interpret the dream. But the king was not happy with that answer. He was very hot-tempered. And so the king said, well, then I'm just going to kill all of you wise men. So he sent his soldiers out to kill all the wise men. So when the soldier got to Daniel, because Daniel was one of the wise men, Daniel had not heard about this. And so Daniel says, hey, what's going on here, soldier? And the soldier told him what was going on. And so Daniel said, give me some time to go to my God and see if my God will tell me what the king has dreamed. And so that is what happened. And God did indeed tell Daniel what the king had dreamed, and he gave him the interpretation. So here is the dream. Daniel went to the king. And first of all, Daniel said, he told the king that God, the true God, my God, has given you this dream to tell you, to show you what is going to happen in the future. It's a prophetic dream. And so here is the dream as he described it. He said, you, O king, were watching, and behold, there was a single great statue. So there it is right there. There was a single great statue. That statue, which was large and of extraordinary radiance, was standing in front of you, and its appearance was awesome. I love it that he says that. The head of that statue was made of fine gold. Its chest and its arms were silver. Its belly and its thighs were bronze. Its legs of iron, and its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. You continued watching until a stone was broken off without hands, and it struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay, and crushed them. The iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, the gold were crushed to pieces, all at the same time. And they were like chaff from the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, so that not a trace of them was found. But the stone that struck the statue became a great mountain and filled the entire earth. So that is the dream that God revealed to Daniel that the king had, and that is the interpretation. All right. So, well, no, that's just the dream. So now Daniel is going to tell him the interpretation. I'm going to let you read along with me on that one. Okay, so he says, here's the interpretation. You, O king, are king of kings, to whom the God of heaven has given the kingdom, the power. So he blah, 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 blah. He's saying, king, you're amazing. He's kind of, puffing up the king here. And he says, you are the head of gold. Okay, so the head of gold, remember the statue has all the gold, silver, bronze, iron. Okay, so the head, the golden head, actually represents this king, this empire. Okay. And he says, after you, another kingdom will arise inferior to you. So this would be the arms and the chest of silver. This is another empire. Another third kingdom of bronze. Okay. So that would be the center part and the thighs that were made of bronze, which will rule all over the earth. Then there will be a fourth kingdom, as strong as iron. Just as iron smashes and crushes everything, so like iron that crushes, it will smash and crush all these things. Okay, and so that was the legs made out of iron. And in that you saw the feet and toes partly of potter's clay and partly of iron. It will be a divided kingdom, but it will have within it some of the toughness of iron, since you saw the iron mixed with common clay. So that's the feet. And just as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of pottery, so some of the kingdom will be strong, and part of it will be fragile. In that you saw the iron mixed with common clay, they will combine with one another in their descendants, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not combine with pottery. All right. And in the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which will never be destroyed. And in that kingdom will not be left for another, and that kingdom will not be left for another people. It will crush and put an end to all these kingdoms, but it itself will endure forever. What's he talking about? He's talking about Jesus. Talking about the Messiah, the kingdom of heaven. Just as you saw that a stone was broken off from the mountain without hands, and that it crushed the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, the gold, the great God has made known to the king what will take place in the future. So the dream is certain and its interpretation is trustworthy. Okay, so that is Daniel's interpretation of the king's dream that God gave him. So what is our interpretation of this? What do we think this means? All right. So remember, we are still comparing both the premillennialists and partial preterists. Okay. So far, the partial preterists and the premillennialists agree about a lot of this. Okay. So we agree that these first four empires that are described, that we agree that those are these empires that are listed right here. Okay. What we don't agree is with the bottom part, with the feet that are made out of clay and iron. Okay, so the first empire was the Babylonian Empire, the head of gold. Okay, then after that came the Medo-Persian Empire, which was the silver, the chest and arms. Then after that was the Grecian Empire, the bronze made out of, that was his thighs and his belly. That's the Greeks. And then after that, the legs of iron is the Roman Empire. Okay, and so if you know your New Testament, this is when Jesus came, was during this Roman Empire. Okay, this is exactly what happened according to the dream and the interpretation. It matched this perfectly. These four empires indeed did take place. They did happen. Okay, so we agree on all of that. We also agree, remember, at the very end of this dream, the interpretation, there is this big stone that comes and it crushes the feet of this statue. And when the stone crushes the feet, the whole statue crumbles. And then the stone grows and fills the whole earth. Okay, so we agree that the stone represents Jesus. What we don't agree with is when the stone comes and crushes the statue. Okay, so in true futurist premillennialist fashion, that they believe that there is a huge gap between these first four sections of the statue and the feet of the statue, because they believe that when the stone comes, when Jesus comes, that's Jesus's second coming. So they believe that you've got the first, the top part all the way down to the legs of the statue, but then there's a huge gap between his legs and his feet of 2,000 plus years. So that's how they interpret this. And that when Jesus' second coming, that's when the stone will crush all these pagan empires and will grow until it fills the whole earth. All right. All right. So of course, the way we interpret it, partial preterists, we don't see any gap. So we think that the feet of clay and iron, okay, what the stone crushes, what it crushes into, smashes into to crush the whole statue, we believe that takes place right after these first four empires, okay? In fact, I believe, and I couldn't find anybody else saying this, but it's my opinion that the feet that are partially iron, which is the Romans, and partially clay, I believe the clay represents us. It represents the church, the early church, Okay, because he's the potter, Jesus is the potter, we're the clay. So I believe that the reason why the feet, that was the weak part. I believe that the church, the resurgence of the church, that the rise of the Christians, that is what caused the end of the Roman Empire. Okay, that's what I believe is this signifies. Okay, and we believe that the rock coming and crushing the feet and then crushing the whole statue, that happened when Jesus came the first time. Okay, and so one of the reasons why the premillennialists have trouble with believing that is because then the rock grows and grows and fills up the whole earth. And so they don't see that is happening now. They think that things are going to continue getting worse and worse and worse. And then the tribulation, Jesus is going to come and save us. And everything's just going to get worse and worse and worse until Jesus comes and saves us. Okay, and so that's why they can't understand or see that this rock has already crushed the statue and Jesus's kingdom is already here and growing and growing. But the partial preterists don't have any trouble believing that. And here's why. If you stop listening to the lying news and you stop listening to all the doomsayers that are running around saying things are getting worse and worse and worse and everything's terrible, then you will see that is exactly what's happening. That the stone, the rock of Jesus Christ, the stone, the foundation, and when he came and set up his kingdom 2,000 years ago. So when Christianity first started, it started with one man in a small group of people, 12 men and some followers in a small little area in the Middle East, 2,000 years ago. In that 2,000 years, that religion, Christianity, has grown and grown to become the biggest, the largest religion in the entire earth. Did you know that? Yes, the news doesn't want you to know that. So Christianity is the largest religion in the entire earth. Today there are more than 2.4 billion people who claim to be Christians today. Okay, does that surprise you? Because a lot of people think there are more Muslims. So today there are 1.9 billion Muslims. Okay, and Christianity has been around a lot less time than the Muslim faith. So within 2,000 years, Christianity has grown from this tiny little thing, this tiny little movement to fill the whole earth. And I believe that is going to continue happening, that the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven that is within us right now, because we are the body of Christ, that it will continue growing until it does take over the earth even more. I believe that we are embarking upon a new age right now of great revival, and we are going to see more than ever before the kingdom of heaven growing and filling the whole earth. And it's a marvelous, exciting time to be alive. That is one of the reasons why this is called victorious eschatology.